Hey guys, hello and welcome to Naveed for Speed. In today's video, I am going to be showing you the Genesis GV80. It's a luxury SUV from the South Korean brand that starts at £60,000 and aims to offer great value against traditional luxury SUVs. It has all the same features, and the one I'm driving today is the Luxury Plus spec, and that comes in at around £75,000. Now, Genesis have announced that they're not going to be continuing the GV80 in this petrol form. And so the reason why is because it hasn't really sold that well, especially compared to its electric younger sibling, the Genesis GV60. So in this video, I aim to find out exactly why that might be, because upon first glance, this looks like an incredible vehicle with all its features that it has. In this video, I'm going to show you the exterior of the car, I'm going to show you the interior, and I'm going to take it out for a drive to see exactly how it all comes together and how the refinement of this car comes together. You can pick up used versions of this car in the entry-level premium spec on Auto Trader for around £40,000, and this Luxury Plus version comes in at just under £60,000. So it offers good value, but let me show you some of its features. I'll start with the exterior of the car, and as usual, I'll start with the front of the car because I actually really quite like the way the Genesis GV80 looks. If it was a competition in terms of looks, the Genesis GV80 would win. You've got this massive front grille at the front, which is like the traditional Genesis vehicles, but it looks a bit more like a Bentley, especially when you're driving down the road. People will turn and look, and it does give off that sort of luxury vibe. Now, there is a newer version, a 2025 version of this car, but it's not coming to the UK, and that has a slightly revised front bumper with some more air intakes. That actually looks really good, but we're not getting that here in the UK. You can see the Genesis badge at the top, this winged badge, which again make the car look more like a Bentley. Now, when we say this car looks like a Bentley, that's actually quite a compliment, because Bentley is, an epitome of a luxury design and refinement. So if the Genesis is getting somewhere close to that, then that's quite a compliment for it. But you can see on the side here, these sort of twin headlights in this sort of parallel arrangement. This is traditional Genesis design. You can see this on all the Genesis vehicles. I had the Genesis GV60. If you haven't already seen that video, make sure you click the button up here. You can check out my Genesis GV60 video. But yeah, you'll see the same sort of design here, these sort of twin headlights, and it gives the car a really mean look at the front, a stylish, sleek look. It's really nice and smooth. But yeah, it ties the whole car together, especially with these lines on the bonnet that make it look quite muscular. As we move towards the side of the car, you'll notice immediately these big wheels, these alloy wheels, 22-inch on this Luxury Plus spec. Now, if you get your car in the premium spec, as standard, you get 20-inch alloy wheels, but any spec above that, the Luxury Plus, you will get these 22-inch alloy wheels in this design. There is a sport spec of this car which gives you a sort of black alloy wheels, which look really quite cool as well. But for this version, you get this, and they do look quite massive, which is nice. Sat on these Michelin Pilot Sport 4 SUV tires. Now, you can see it has been snowing. It is winter. These are not winter tires. So I'll tell you exactly how the car has coped with that when I take it out for a drive. So from the side of the car, you'll notice the dimensions of the car. You'll notice how big it is. From the front to the back is actually just shy of 5 meters in length, which is, if I lay down next to the car, that'll be about 2.5 of me. So it's quite big. And you'll also notice down here, the ground clearance, there's about 20 centimeters of ground clearance. So if you are taking this car light off-roading, you shouldn't really have a problem. Now, when I take this car out to drive, I'll tell you a little bit more about the different driving modes, and I'll show you how that feels when you take it out there. But yeah, you get that. When it comes the design on the side, you'll notice 3 main lines. You've got the tapered roof line at the top. You've got this sort of line that goes all along from the front to the back of the car along here. And then you've got this sort of chrome feature down here. And that all adds to the design of the car. The sort of, it's slightly sporty. There is a sport spec of this car. But again, ultimately, it's meant to be a luxury car. And again, it reminds me of the Bentley Bentayga. As we move towards the back of the car, you'll notice these rear tail lights over here that come in this sort of twin arrangement similar to the front, and I think that's really quite cool because it ties in the whole design of the car from the front to the back, and it makes it all look unified, and I think that's really nice. As we move down towards the rear bumper, you'll notice the exhaust over here. In fact, you'll notice two exhausts back here. Now these exhausts come in this sort of interesting shape. Now that shape is supposed to reflect the shape of the front grille, so you'll notice how it comes in this sort of almost a five-sided shape. Yeah, that's meant to reflect the front. So I think that's really quite cool that they've incorporated that into the design. You'll also notice over here it says Genesis on the back and there isn't a badge. Now, I really quite like the fact that it says Genesis, even though it says GENES 1S, that looks like a 1. But yeah, I like the way that it says Genesis on the back and not just a badge, because a lot of people, when they see me driving this car, they'll often stop and come around the back and look to see what it's called because they don't recognize it. So when it comes from a rarity perspective, you won't find a lot of Genesises out on the road. And the reason for that is because, well, firstly, they didn't sell a lot of these cars, but they have started to sell a lot of GV60s and a lot of the other models. So why haven't they managed to sell these? Well, Genesis is now moving towards coming together with Hyundai. Before it was its own standalone brand, and now it's going to be the luxury version of Hyundai. They're going to be sold in Hyundai dealerships as well. So they're starting to change the business model. And I think because because Genesis is part of Hyundai and obviously Kia, it has similar features to those cars. So I think the more customers, the more the general public actually learns about these cars, the more they'll understand, the more they'll see the benefit and value in these cars. Now let me show you the boot of the Genesis GV80. Now you can open it in a couple of ways. Number one is by using the key, but there's also a button over here which is cleverly disguised in the rear windscreen wiper. If you press that, then the boot will open. I think that's really quite good, so you don't have to sort of lean over and start looking for a button down here or be kicking your foot around. But once you open the boot, inside here you've got 727 litres of boot space. Now that's because this is the 6-seater version, and you also get the same amount of boot space back here in the 7-seater version as well. But if you go for the 5-seater version, you get around 735 litres of boot space. Now what I quite like about this boot is you have some buttons over here which you can press and you can fold those seats down. Now, when you fold the seats down, you get over 2,100 litres of boot space back here. And that's plenty to put luggage, especially if you're transporting, you know, things rather than people. That's really quite good. But if you are transporting people, then you've got the buttons back here, so you can use them to lift those second bench of seats back up. And then you can also use it to lift up the rear seats as well. So your third bench of seats, you've got 2 seats back here. I'll just move this out of the way a little bit. You can see those seats coming up. And there you have it. You can just lift up the headrest there. And now I'll show you the interior of the car. I'll show you the first bench, second bench, and third bench of seats before I take this car out to drive. Okay, before I show you the interior of the car and before I take it out to drive, I want to show you a very quick feature of this car, and it involves the keys. Now, because this car, like Kia vehicles and Hyundai vehicles, you can actually use the key to move the car. So if you have parked your car in a tight parking spot and you can't get into it, you can use your keys to actually move the car. So what you do is you press the lock button over here, and then you hold this down, and you'll notice very shortly that the car actually starts. Now, because this isn't an electric car, you can actually hear it starting. I did the same thing on the Genesis GV60 and the Kia EV9, and because they're electric cars, you don't hear them starting. But this car has actually started. And now if I go close to the car and if I press one of these buttons here, you'll actually notice that the car will start to move. It takes its time, but there you go. And then you can move it back if you want to, so you can actually use it to park the car as well. Maybe you're parking it in a garage at home, or maybe you're just trying to get out of a parking spot in the supermarket. That's quite convenient, a bit of a party trick. I do like to show my friends that I'm taking my car for a walk, but that's pretty cool if you ask me. So let me take you through the interior of the Genesis GV80, because in general, the interior of most Genesis vehicles is actually really quite nice, very refined, very well designed, put together with loads of different types of material. And it's no different in the GV80 because of course this is a luxury SUV. Now, I know it's cold outside and my hands are actually really cold. So coming inside is actually quite a relief. You've got heated and ventilated seats for the driver and the passenger. And in fact, in this Luxury Plus version, the rear cabin has heated and ventilated seats as well. I'll tell you more about that when I take you back there. But for now, let me just show you the front as well. Heated steering wheel in front of you. Depending on how you spec your interior, you can get this in a duotone leather, but I've just got the one tone here. Two-spoke rather, which I'm not quite a big fan of, because that means that when you turn the steering wheel upside down, like you're turning, for example, it looks the same both ways. So you sort of, you know, you can kind of tell which way your wheels are facing. Electronically controlled steering, so I'll tell you more about that when I take it out on the road. You've got leathers throughout the cabin, stitching. You've got this wood over here as well, chrome. Same with the center console, this wood over here with the sort of chrome features around here. I think it all ties in really well, and I really quite like this black design on the interior. Again, you can get this in loads of different colors as well. In front of you, you've got this infotainment screen over here, which you can use to operate loads of different features of the car. But I'm not really a fan of this infotainment screen because it's actually quite far away from the driver. If I have my seatbelt on, which I do have to mention is sometimes a little bit difficult to put on. If I have my seatbelt on and I'm driving along and I want to touch like the far corner of the screen, let's say I want to try and get to the navigation or the map, I have to reach forward. And so I don't quite like that. In the newer 2025 Genesis GV80 that we're not getting, you've got one screen for your infotainment, and for your instrument cluster, and it's a lot easier to reach. But Genesis have thought of that, because you've got this sort of rotary dial over here, which you can use to operate the infotainment screen over there. And it has this sort of touchpad sensor, which you can use to operate as well. So you can just swipe along, you can use it in your navigation to write letters as well. So you've got that over there. I'll just move down to the center console now, actually, because you've got this gear selector here. Now, it's not as spectacular as the Genesis GV60, but it's still quite good. You just turn it and you can change the drive mode that you're doing. That's a shift-by-wire system, so it's electronically controlled depending on what you do on your input over there. And then here you'll notice you've got this drive mode button over here. So if you turn it, you can change it to sport, comfort, eco, and you can push this to change it to terrain mode. So you've got snow mode, a mud mode, and a sand mode. I'll tell you a bit more about that when I take it out to drive, because of course I've had this car for a few days now and I have been driving it in the snow. I'll tell you exactly how that is. And over here you've got some cup holders at the front. You've got charging ports over here, wireless charging. You can put your phone in there. You've got some USB sockets over there, and you've got more storage throughout the car as well. Before I get to the storage, I'll tell you about this screen over here, which controls your climate control over here using these touch screens, so you can change where the air is coming from. Heated and ventilated seats as well for the front passenger and the driver as well. Heated steering wheel, and you've got a load of these sort of shortcuts over here, so that's really quite good. Overall, I think the interior cabin is supposedly quite nice. You've got the buttons over here to change, to move the passenger seat, as you have seen in Genesis and Kia vehicles before. You've got some storage down here underneath the center console as well. Now, this storage is actually quite small compared to what I've seen in other vehicles that you have under the center console, but it's still quite discreet. It's not the easiest to see, but if you want to store something out of sight, you can store it down there. And you've got a 12-volt socket down here, which you can't really see on the camera. Obviously, USB ports over here, 12-volt socket down here. You'll also notice over here, you've got this sort of I say knee pad over here. It's sort of cushiony a little bit. Now, that's quite convenient when you're driving along and you want to, rest your knee. I've found, because I'm a little bit taller, that my knee ends up resting along this side over here. So I would have liked that to have extended a little bit further up, but it's nice that they've thought of that and they've put something there. So generally, for most drivers, that shouldn't be a problem. Now, let me show you the different storage compartments. So you've got one here in the center console over here, which you've got this in there. So you can actually use that to store stuff in there. But it's, you know, it's not the largest. I mean, you've got some space in there, but you've got storage over there. Now, I say not the largest. You've got the glove box over here, which again isn't the largest. It is lined with this sort of soft material, as is the storage in the center console, and the door bins are not really that deep, so you will find yourself storing stuff in loads of other places in the car. Overall then, I think the interior cabin is very nicely refined here in the front, and I'll explain to you what that's like when I take the car out to drive and how that translates into the driving experience. But before I do, let me show you the rear cabin. So here in the rear cabin, you can actually find a lot of space. You've got a lot of legroom, you've got a load of headroom. And the reason why that is because this is, again, the luxury SUV. It's supposedly a sort of limo kind of design. So the rear passengers are supposed to feel comfortable. Because this is the 6-seater version, you don't get a seat in the middle. You get this sort of center armrest here with some storage over here as well. Cup holders over here. Now, these cup holders are really cool because you've got these buttons on top of these cup holders, which you can press like so, and you can get heated and ventilated or cooling cup holders. So if you've got a cold drink, you can put them in there. If you've got a hot drink, you can heat it up. So I think that's actually really quite cool. And whilst we're on the subject, you've got heated and ventilated seats and climate control back here as well for the rear passengers. So back here, the rear passengers should actually feel really comfortable. Now, you might find that I'm sitting quite upright, but there's a button over here at the just around the side of the seat. If you press that button, you can actually recline the seat. Now, I don't know, there you go. That's as far as it goes. I was just gonna say, I don't know how far it goes, but there you have it. That's as far as it goes, and you can have a nice relaxing drive, a journey for wherever you're going. You've got this sort of blind back here, which you can control as well. So if you want some more privacy, or if the sun's in your eyes, for example, you've got that. But let me tell you, I'll just come up again a little bit. Let me tell you about this screen over here, because you've got two screens. You've got one for each rear passenger, and I'll just show you on this one because it might be a bit easier. But you can actually use this screen to control a load of stuff like your climate control. You can see where you are on the navigation. You can even change the ambient lighting in here, and you can connect up your phone in here as well. You can see what's going on in the cameras outside. So there's loads that you can do over here. You can actually, if you use the center console over here, you can actually turn the volume of the music up. I don't actually have anything playing, but you can use that to control many aspects of the car from back here. So if anything, this is a car that should be good to be driven in as well as to drive. Now, if you have got kids back here, they will probably mess around with this stuff. I'm not sure if you can actually disable these controls from the front infotainment system so the kids don't mess about, because they might just keep turning the volume up. If you know about that, let me know in the comments. But yeah, I mean, if I was a kid and I was getting driven around in this, I would be really happy. You've got loads of light coming in through the sunroof over here. That's an optional extra, this sort of sunroof, which lets all this this glass roof, which lets all this light in. But still quite a private interior. You've noticed these speakers over here. This is the 18 speaker sound system. It's an extra. It's part of one of the many different packs that you get in this car. You get the innovation pack and all sorts. Ordinarily in the premium spec, you'll get 9 speaker system. This is a Lexicon 18 speaker system. So the sound is actually really quite good and immersive. But let me tell you about the rear bench, the third bench. In fact, I'll just go over there now. So what you do is you press this button on the top here. I've noticed that you don't actually have to hold the buttons down. You can just press them, and it can move the seats. So that's hit the front, so that's why it stopped there. But anyway, I'll try and get into the back here, which is a bit of a squeeze, but I'm in. Okay, so let me just put this headrest up. So here we are in the back. You've got a cup holder over here and a little storage area here, and you've got a vent over here as well, so you can keep yourself cool or warm. What I'll do is oh, that's not the button that I wanted. The button that I wanted is up here, because I want to bring this the second row of seats back. Okay, so here we go. what is it like back here? Well, for taller passengers, you might struggle for legroom, but that is obviously the case with this third bench of seats. For children, I think it should be perfectly fine, although there isn't a lot of light coming in back here. And yeah, for taller passengers, there's not a lot of headroom. But I think for a family, especially with kids, I think it's perfectly capable for taking people on a longer journey if you're going away somewhere. More legroom than I thought there would be, actually. So that's really convenient. Of course, this is a big car. It's 5 meters long. But I think now I should actually take you out on a drive and show you what it feels like. So what is the Genesis GV80 like to drive? Well, let me tell you, as I try to leave this car park, which I've had the car parked in for quite some time, in the snow. I mean, it shouldn't really have some problem with the snow, but if I just put the car in drive and I set off, I mean, it's totally fine. I can even put my foot down a little bit and it doesn't struggle for grip. And this is on summer tires and I've not even got the terrain mode on. So yeah, I mean, it seems to be capable enough to be able to drive on the snow. And yeah, in the last few days, I have been driving this car in the snow and it's been totally fine. I mean, it's so easy to control this car, especially when you're going around corners on really icy roads. If you want to, you can have a bit of fun with it. You can kick the tail out a little bit, but you can always have the confidence that it will keep you safe because it's got the four-wheel drive system. Now, you might have heard a little bit of that engine. Yes, when you rev the car hard in order to get moving, in order to get quite a bit of engagement out of the car, in order for it to work really well on the road, you will have to rev the car a little bit more. But once you get up to speed, it's totally fine. I mean, at low speeds as well in the city, as you're driving through traffic, it's totally fine as well. It's really nice and refined. I am hearing a bit of road noise on those 22-inch alloy wheels, on those tires, but I suspect if you had the 20-inch alloys, that would be a little bit better. Now, what can I tell you about the ride quality, about the suspension, about how it feels through these nice, comfortable heated seats? How is it? Well, it's actually really nice. It floats along like I'm driving on a cloud. And the reason for that actually is because there's a camera on the front of a car, a sensor rather, that will be scanning the road ahead and it will see the bumps in the road, it will see any potholes, and it will prime the suspension as you're approaching it to be able to deal with that. So that's why when it comes to these bumps in the road, when it comes to these hills, these undulations, the speed bumps even, it's totally fine. I mean, I've driven this car over speed bumps at speeds that I would not be driving, let's say, a saloon car or a coupe. But of course, this is an SUV, so I've been able to push it a little bit more, and it's been totally fine. It's actually not even sounded that bad, and it's not felt that bad. And I really hope that when I get out of this car and I get into another car, I don't keep up that same habit. But when it comes to its driving ability, it's totally fine. It's not supposed to be a sporty car. It's supposed to be a luxury car. It's supposed to be that limo where you can get driven in the back. But it does have a little bit of a sporty attitude. As you accelerate the car, you can feel the front sort of lift up a little bit, not a lot. I mean, we're not talking Rolls-Royce Cullinan sort of levels of lean, but when you're going in the corners, I suspect the suspension is primed and ready, so it keeps the car relatively flat while still having a bit of a comfortable drive. The steering wheel I mentioned is electric, so you don't get as much feedback from the steering wheel as you would like, but you get the feedback from other parts of the car. The throttle response is a little bit slow, but when you put it into sport mode, it's instant. It's really quick to react. And there's a load of safety features in this car as well that'll keep you on the road. You've got your lane keep assist, you've got your traffic monitoring. If you're reversing into something, it will actually reverse for you, and you'll hear loads of noises like this, the beeps and the bongs and everything that are going on. Yes, the car will warn you, like in Genesis and in Hyundai and Kia vehicles, it'll warn you of cameras that are coming up, and it will make a bong noise for that as well. But you'll hear loads of other noise, and you just got to get used to them. I think maybe they might become annoying to some people, but I actually quite like the comfort of having them there, because they'll warn me of certain things that are going on. So I really quite like that. As we get into this sort of little bit more bumpy bit over here where the road isn't as well built, you can certainly get a sense of the feeling of those potholes or those bumps or the little bits in the road like that, but it's not uncomfortable. And I think the seats really add to that. 12-way electronically adjustable, so you can move them to suit your driving position, and they also come with lumbar support, and they're massaging. So regardless of what you're doing or where you're going, you can have a nice comfortable journey. I would have liked the massage function to be a little bit more stronger, but I'm not complaining, especially in days like this where it's cold outside. I've got a heated and I've got a massaging seat. I've got a really nice driving position where I can see out in front of me. I can actually see the bonnet in front of me, so I can see exactly where I'm placing the front of the car. The visibility all around seems to be totally fine. You might find a little bit of problems with the pillars, but aside from that, it's totally fine. I've got the rear blinds on now for the rear passengers, so you can't see out the windows very well, but I can actually put those down using the button C, and you can see this one back here just going down. So yeah, you can, over the shoulder visibility is fine as well, and you've got all sorts. You've got cameras and you've got everything around this car. You've got sensors that can tell you where the other traffic is. And so I think when it comes to a refined driving experience, that is what you can expect from this car. Is it as sporty as some of its rivals from BMW and Mercedes, like the X5, etc.? I wouldn't think so, but I think this is a car that's more designed for you to relax. It's designed for you to enjoy and go on your journey. 2.5 litre petrol. I've gone through so much of this video without even mentioning the drivetrain. Yes, it's got a 2.5 litre petrol engine. It's got an 8-speed gearbox. You can actually change the gears using these flappy paddles, or it's just automatic. And yeah, I mean, I don't really have any complaints from that, apart from the fact that I wish it had a little bit more power. But as far as what you're getting for the price that you're getting it at, I think the total package in terms of luxury, in terms of feeling, in terms of that driving experience, in terms of the comfort, in terms of the rarity of this car, and in terms of how good it looks, I think is a really nice package. And in terms of value, it provides really good value. When it comes to Euro NCAP rating, safety rating, 5-star safety rating, I think I briefly read a story about Tiger Woods having an accident in one of these cars and it kept him safe. The car actually flipped over and rolled a few times and he was alive. And I don't think he was majorly injured. I'm not actually sure. I might be making things up. So let me know in the comments if you know much about that story. But he was in a Genesis GV80. When it comes to, there you go, there's the beeps and the bongs telling me I'm coming out of its lane, out of my lane slightly. When it comes to warranty, if you're buying this car, you get a 5-year unlimited mileage warranty. And so you can be safe in the knowledge that you will, if anything goes wrong on the car, if there's anything not right, you can get that sorted. And you can get a 5-year care plan on this car, which involves a servicing. It involves any issues, breakdown cover as well. And so, for example, if you need to get your car serviced, Genesis will come to you and give you a courtesy car and collect your car and then come deliver it back as well. And that 5-year care plan can be transferred from owner to owner. So if you are buying this car used, which there are, is very good value, then you can do that. But of course, if you are looking at this car used, there are many other cars that are similar price to it, especially, I mean, just some of its siblings from Hyundai and Kia. I mean, this car comes with similar features as those cars. For example, when the lead car in front of you is driving off from a set of traffic lights, it can alert you of that on your instrument cluster in front of you. So that's quite convenient. When you are indicating to make a turn or to change lanes, you'll get a blind spot camera that comes up in your instrument cluster, and it will tell you, if there's a car next to you. So that's really quite convenient. I think overall, the experience of this car is there to just make your life easier. It's just there to make your life more comfortable. And I think that's what I'm finding with this car. The more and more that I drive it, especially in this weather, especially with the cold weather and the snow, with the four-wheel drive system. I mean, a lot of people have been getting stuck here, and yeah, this car has got me through a lot. So as far as I'm aware, I really like this car. I think I would love to be driven in it just as much as I would love to drive it. And it's a shame that we're not getting the Genesis GV80 in the UK, but it might return in the future as an electric car. So keep your eyes peeled, because as far as a luxury electric car, I mean, we're talking the likes of a bit more like the Kia EV9. We might be getting that from Genesis. So let's just see what happens. But yeah, if you're interested in buying a Genesis GV80, go out and try one. I think you'll be really surprised. I mean, I certainly was. But I'm not surprised at the form that Genesis are on, considering how Hyundai and Kia are doing. So yeah, definitely, if you're wanting that luxury, that sort of premium feel, the Genesis GV80 is a great car. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Thank you and take care.